Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this one we are going to work on configuring and securing ACR and AKS in Azure. So ACR is the container registry and AKS is the Kubernetes cluster. So this is part of the AZ500 Azure Security Technologies series of labs that are available from Github from Microsoft Learning. Now there are actually multiple AZ500 repo, and make sure that you're using the latest repo. And if you go to the lab, you will see most of these files, they're updated very recently, as recent as just like 6 days back. And those changes were made to reflect more recent portal updates and feature updates that we have within Azure. So I'm redoing some of these labs just to make sure we are able to complete the latest and greatest feature of Azure portal as of today. So we have completed all of this lab 1 to 8, and now we're working on configuring and securing ACR and AKS. So the scenario is someone asks you to deploy a POC with Azure Container Registry and Azure Kubernetes service. So we are gonna do few specific tasks, like we're gonna use a Docker file to build an image. We're gonna use Azure Container Registry to store images, configure the Azure Kubernetes service, and finally securing and accessing container applications both internally and externally. And just like any other lab, we're gonna try to use the East US region as our preferred region to deploy our Azure resources. So in this exercise, we're going to need a couple of exercise files and Nginx external YAML and Nginx internal YAML file. We'll take a look into this file when we get there. So if you look at it, this really contains a whole bunch of tasks. Okay, this whole exercise, and it's going to take about 45 minutes, maybe an hour, because I need to explain a few things here and there. So really, we'll create a container registry, create a Docker file, and build the container, and then push it to the Azure Container Registry. Then we're going to create a Azure Kubernetes service cluster, then grant the AKS cluster permissions to access the ACR, Azure Container Registry, deploy an external service to Azure Kubernetes service, verify that we can access the external AKS hosted service, deploy an internal service to AKS, and finally verify that we can access the internal AKS hosted service as well. So again, just like anything, we are going to go to the portal, and this time we're going to go and work with the Azure CLI instead of using the Azure PowerShell. So here is our portal. Just go to home, and I'm just going to work with the Cloud Shell. Just click over here. It will most likely put it in the PowerShell mode, so I'm going to change that to bash and confirm. Hopefully I'll have the bash window available to me. Yeah, it is. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a resource group, and very simple command, az group create, name is the lab 9, so AZ500 lab 9, and location East US. That's where we said we're going to deploy most of our resources. So paste, and look, my resource group is there. Now it's the provisioning state is now succeeded. And the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to take a look if our resource group was created successfully. So paste this command and look at that, it's created. So what query parameters is really, you pass to a command to get to certain items, like it's just like a filters. If you know grep in Linux, think about it's like a grep for the AZ commands that you would use in Azure. And O table is outful in table format, so that's why you have this as a nice table formatted, like name and the location, right? So come back over here. Next thing that we want to do, we want to run a command to create a ACR, okay, and your name has to be unique, and that's why you have this random included in here. So copy this, and we're going to create a basic SKU. So pretty much within with the CLI, we are really creating a Azure Container Registry, and it will have a random AZ500 random and random number in there. So come back over here. The bash session within the cloud pane run the following to confirm that ACR was created. So again, we'll do the same thing, ACR list, and we're gonna list all the ACR within this particular resource group, and we're gonna record the name of the ACR and move to the next task. So it's still running, so just give it a second and then we'll continue. Alright, our deployment is done over here. As you can see, our command that we ran last, where we just ran this command over here to create a ACR registry, that is successful. And what we need to do, we need to run this command, ACR list, and find the ACR from this particular resource group next. So let's see, hit enter. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to restart the cell real quick, and we'll get the name of the ACR because I have a couple of random here, so I need to know. And then we move to the next task and we'll create a Docker file. So let's just give it a second, and hopefully it will be here in just a second, and we'll continue. There we go. So paste and hit, and then it's really big. So let's see what is the name over here. AZ500. So this is the name of our Azure Container Registry. I'm going to copy that one and I'm going to save it over here. And just to make sure that is the right one, I'm going to go down to the resource group as well. Let's see if I have this resource group and make sure that I have the Azure Registry ACR. Okay, so this is the registry, that is the container registry. Okay, there's the container registry ending with 10848. So we made sure that everything looks good. So let's come back over here and we are ready to move to the next task. So the first task, we created Azure Container Registry. Next we are going to create a Docker file, build a container and push that container to the Azure Container Registry. So in the bash session, we're gonna copy this particular file. So this command will create a file, Docker file, and it's gonna write this particular command in here, echo from Nginx. So copy this one, go back over here and paste this command, and if you do a ls here, you should see the Docker file, and if you do a less in this Docker file, you should see that it says from Nginx. Okay, so that's what this command did. So let's come back over here. So next, what we're going to do in the bash session within the Cloud Shell pane, run the following to build an image from the Docker file and push the image to the new Azure Container Registry. Here, the trailing period at the end of the command line is required. So this is a required dot, and don't always think it's just a period to end your command. So let's see, I'm going to copy this one, and so it's gonna get the ACL list, the Azure Container Registry, store it in here, and then it's gonna build the image from the Nginx v1 and it's gonna push that to this particular registry. And which file is gonna be pushed is a Docker file. And from where? From here. So that dot means from here, get the Docker file and push it to this particular registry. So come back down over here and let's try out this command and see it's working. So now it's saying packing source code into tar to upload, and it's going on, and there it goes. So it's now scanning all the dependencies and building the Docker image, and once it's done, we will be ready to move to the next phase or next task of our lab. So here at this time we can close the Cloud Shell, and we're going to go back to the resource group, and in the list of resources click the entry representing the Cloud Container Registry. We are actually already here. Let's see. Yeah, so this looks like this is all done, and this is the registry. The name of the registry Azure CR.io. Repository is a sample Nginx tag v1, and you have the digest and all of that stuff in here. So I can really close this one, come back to the registry, and let's see what do we need to do next. And under services, go to the repositories. So under services, go to our repositories and look at that. Sample Nginx is right in here. So verify the list of repositories that includes the sample Nginx. Click the sample Nginx entry and verify the presence of v1 tag that identify the image version. So look at that. That is the v1. So that identifies the Docker file, and this is the everything in JSON format. And this is the Docker pull command that we can use. Let's come back over here. So we know that what we did in here, we created Docker file and build the container and push it back to the registry, container registry, and we have the registry available to us. Next, we are going to do create an Azure Kubernetes service cluster. So in this one, we gotta go and have the Kubernetes services. That is a little bit more complicated, but not too terribly difficult. So find the Kubernetes services, click on that one, and this one we're gonna use the portal to deploy it. Hit the create Kubernetes cluster. I'm not gonna use the arc at this time. And what we'll do is, this is gonna be the resource group as the same lab 9. We're gonna call it my Kubernetes cluster. It's going to be deployed in US East zone 1, 2, 3, and I think all the default versions should be good. Node count is 1. Here node count is, they're saying 3, so I'm going to drop down to 1 just to reduce the number of reduce my cost, and just to stay within the resource limitation I have within the free account. Availability zone by default is choosing 3. You can click and deselect all of them to make it none. So it's not deploying 3, and that also makes sense, right? We're only using 1 count and we're using just no availability zone. Okay, so next in the node pool, okay, so once we are here, what we need to do, specify the following setting: enable the virtual nodes, cleared checkbox, and VM scale set cleared checkbox. So let's see over here, enable virtual nodes and enable virtual machine scale sets. We don't need any of them, so I'm gonna clear both of them, cleared and cleared. And next, go to the authentication, and let's see what we need for the authentication. On the authentication, create Kubernetes cluster blade, accept the defaults, and so we're not really doing anything. Authentication, so the default is the system assign manage identity. That's great. Role-based access control, yeah, enable it. And then encryption, default encryption at rest. So I'm gonna take all of that, go to networking, see if we have anything that we need to configure. Network configuration value is the Azure CNI, and DNS prefix, any globally unique DNS hostname. So Azure CNI is what we're gonna use, and for DNS prefix, it's already picked up something, so I'm just gonna use that one for now. And that should be it. And next, go to the integration, and in this page we are going to set container monitoring to disabled. So container monitoring, this one we don't need the monitoring, we just hit it disable for now, and then we are ready to create this particular container Kubernetes service for us. So let's click that, and if the validation is successful, we're going to deploy this particular resource and create the cluster. So this is all good. Hit create. So that should create our Azure Kubernetes services cluster for us. Okay, so here you gotta wait, and this deployment may take about 10 minutes or so. Let's see, we are in step 8. This lab, as I said, is kind of long, so just be patient, and you can kind of watch what is going on. So I'm gonna pause the video, and once this is done, we'll continue again. Okay, it looks like the deployment is now done. So if we want, you can click on the go to the resource, and it should bring you to the Kubernetes services main page. And again, just like any other Azure services, you have the similar interface like overview, activity log, IAM, tags, diagnose and so on, security, some other things more specific to Kubernetes clusters, policies, properties. Logs is pretty much similar to most Azure services. Networking similar, cluster configuration and node pools, they are specific to Azure Kubernetes. So we know our deployment is successful. So once the deployment completes, we are going to go to note a new resource group named MC. This group got created, is that right? So let's come back over here. What we will do, we'll just go back to the resource group just to see what happened, and there we go. So this is the resource group that they're saying. So what they said, once this deployment is successful, you will see in the listing of resource group a new resource group named this MC AZ500 Lab 9 my Kubernetes cluster _ East US that got created, and that holds components of the AKS nodes. Review resources in this particular resource group. So if you go in here, you will see you have a public IP address, availability set, you have the virtual machine, an associated disk, network interface, network security group, load balancer, manage identity, everything that you need, they are inside this particular resource group. And if you go to the AZ500 lab, that main, so this one still has the container registry that we created, a virtual network, and the cluster is right now over here. That service was deployed inside this particular resource group. Okay, so as we said, we already went back to this particular resource entry, and in the list note that AKS cluster and the corresponding virtual network. So we already looked at that one. Now we're going to go back and open the cloud shell again, go to the bash, and in the bash session within the cloud plan, run the following to connect the Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to do this, copy this one, go back, and let's see. So our cloud shell is still there, and let's connect. So what it's doing is AKS get credential, and then resource group here, and name is the my Kubernetes cluster. So it says merge Kubernetes cluster as current context in home anka.cube config. So we should be good. And in this one, we can run this particular command kubectl get nodes to show the nodes that we have that are part of this particular cluster that we have. So now run this, and I think we created only one node, so you should see only one node that should got printed over here. So the command is still running, and let's come back over here. So we need to verify the status of the cluster node is listed as ready. So for here, as I said, we only said that we need one node. So this is the name of the node, AKS agent pool 30198516-0. Status is ready, that's what we wanted. Role is an agent, age is 5 minutes, and version v1 1911. So that all looks good. So the next thing that we want to do, grant AKS cluster permission to access the ACR and manage its virtual network. So from the Azure Kubernetes services, we would like to access the Azure Container Registry and we're going to manage its virtual network. So in this task, what we need to grant the AKS cluster, the Kubernetes cluster, permission to access the Azure Container Registry. So again, we're going to store the Azure Container Registry name in this variable by running this command, and then we're going to update our Azure Kubernetes services, update, and then we're going to provide the name of the Kubernetes cluster. We're going to provide the resource group as -g, and then we're going to attach the Azure Container Registry and provide the details of the Container Registry to the Kubernetes cluster. So copy this command, come over here and paste. So the first command is got the Azure Container Registry properties, and this command is now updating our Azure Kubernetes cluster and adding that particular container registry or attaching back to the cluster. So it's now running, so just give it a minute. And over here, this command grants the arc pull role assignment to the Azure Container Registry. It may take few minutes for this command to complete. Okay, that's fine. So this is now running. So let's just read what we're gonna do next. So once this ACR is attached to the Kubernetes cluster, we are going to run the following commands in here to grant the Azure Kubernetes cluster the contributor role to its virtual network. So we're going to store create a variable RG AKS, the resource group for the Azure Container Service, and we're going to store the name of the resource group. Then we're going to store the virtual network name to a variable. Then the cluster name, we're going to store it in a variable as well. And then here first we are going to get the AKS virtual network ID by running this command. So virtual network show, and then provide the name of the virtual network of the Azure Kubernetes services in the resource group, and we're going to query ID and then output as TSV. And then what we'll do, so that will take the virtual network ID, and the next command AKS managed ID, so AZ/AKS so cluster name resource group and query identity principal output TSV. And then once we have those two, the virtual network ID and the AKS managed ID, we can assign the role assignment like this: AZ role assignment create, and then assignee is the AKS managed ID, this ID, and we're going to assign the role as contributor, and scope is going to be AKS VNet ID. So this managed ID will be assigned a contributor role to manage this virtual network ID. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So come back over here. So this command is now done, so we're going to copy this command, and since we have kind of explained, we're just going to run all this command and see all of that is successful, and this one is also done, this particular command. So that's good. So come back over here. So the next thing that we want to do is deploy an external service to AKS. Now here we need the particular file. So here what we can do, we're going to download the manifest files and then edit the YAML file and apply my changes, the changes that we're going to do to the cluster. So in the bash session within the Cloud Shell, click on the upload download file, and the drop down menu, click on upload, and then you gotta get the external.yml file first. So what I'm gonna do, let's see, new tab, I copy this, I'm gonna put it over here, and the two files that we need, they're in lab 9, so we're gonna go back to here, go back to labs and lab 9, and I'm gonna download both of these files, so raw, and just save pages, put in a downloads folder, come back, and the internal one, raw file, and then save pages, and then save. So we got both of them. So I can close this window, come back over here, and what we have to do, let's see, we are gonna click open and the internal file, and next Okay, the external internal, so it's asking to upload both of them. So come back over here, and if you see this button, it's the upload and download. So you click and click on upload. Let's see, upload, and then go to downloads, and within the downloads you can do the modify. So there's the last two. This one you hit open, so that we just got the external one. Then hit this one more time, upload, and get the internal one as well, and hit open. So and close. So both of them should be available. So if I do a ls here, I should have both Nginx external and Nginx internal, both files available to me. So we have done that. So the next thing that we're gonna do, identify name of the Azure Container Registry. So we're gonna do the echo, and this variable we have already created. So do it one more time, and this is gonna give me the name of the registry. I think we may have already saved this one earlier, so let's just come back over here, put it here. No, we have not. There is one change. Maybe we did. Okay, so well, anyway, I'm just gonna copy this one and paste it over there, and record the container registry instance name. You will need it later in this task. Okay, we have done that already. So the next thing we want to do, we want to open the internal file using Visual Studio Code within our Cloud Shell. So let's come back over here, run this command code dot, and it should open the Cloud Shell. It's a web version of it, very useful. And let's make some edits. So here line 24, there is a arc unique name placeholder with the Asian name, and this one replace this. Okay, we gotta replace this, so let's get that one. Go over here, line 24. So here's my line 24. So here I'm gonna do this. Okay, then hit Control S to save this file. Then come back over here in the editor pane in the upper right corner, click save. I just did Control S and then close the editor. So I can close the editor by, let's see, close editor. Don't hit that one, that will close the bash session. Instead click on the ellipses and then hit close the editor. Alright, and now the next thing we want to do, we want to apply this configurations from the Nginx external to our Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to run this particular command, kubectl apply, and this particular file, and it says deployment apps Nginx external created, service Nginx external created. Okay, so this both were created properly. So now it's time to verify that we can access the external AKS hosted service. So to do this, verify the container can be accessed externally using the public IP address. So you need to get the IP address. To get that, kubectl get service Nginx external. We're gonna run this command. Oops. And then hit enter, and you get the external IP from here. So get the IP port 80. So we just go and paste it over there, hit enter, and see what happens. It's taking a little bit of time, so let's come back over here. In the bash session, review the output and record the value of the external IP. You will need it in the next step. Okay, it's ensured that welcome to Nginx page is displayed. So when we come back over here, there we go. So now we are in the welcome to Nginx. So we know that our Kubernetes cluster is working, and everything is going as per the lab. So everything looks good. So the last one is hopefully the last task. No, we got a couple more tasks. So last task is deploy an internal service to AKS. Again, we're going to do this one. We're going to open the internal Kubernetes cluster configuration. let's see, code. Where is my code? It didn't open my code file. Let me just do ls. The file is still there. It's not opening the file. Why it's not? So let's just do code dot. It still didn't open it. So what I'll do, I'm just gonna restart the cell. Sometimes you need to do that, and then we'll just do the similar stuff as the other one. Again, we're gonna go and edit the file, and we're gonna put the right Azure unique name, and then we'll close the editor and do the same thing. kubectl apply internal. So the internal one you should be able to access using the internal IP address, right? And you don't need to use the public IP address. So what we will do, let's see, go back. So I'm going to do this one here. This time it's now available, so I'm just trying to look for, there is the Azure unique name, so I'm going to go get that one again, copy and replace this with the unique name, do Control S, and then again I'm going to close the editor, and now we're going to apply this particular edit. So by running this, I'm just going to copy this from here and paste, and it should take just a couple minutes, and we should see an output like deployment.apps Nginx internal created and service Nginx internal. So note these are internal created, so we should be able to see that one is still running. And once that's done, we're gonna again run similar command, kubectl get service Nginx internal, and we'll get more information. Yeah, so both of them got created. So run this get services. So now what do you see? The externals is pending, and the cluster IP, now you have a public IP address in here. So in this one, in bash session, review the output. The external IP in this case is a private IP address. Record this IP address. You will need it in the next task. So right now for the external, I don't even have any IP address, so let's just run it a couple times. It still says pending, still says pending. I only get the cluster IP address. External IP for this one is just, I don't have it available. Okay, so what we can do, since I don't have it available yet, to access the internal service endpoint, you will connect interactively to one of the pods running in the cluster. Alternatively, you could use the cluster IP address. So we're going to end up using the cluster IP for now. So I'm just going to copy this one and try to save this one as cluster IP. Okay, come back over here and then verify that you can access the internal AKS hosted services. So in this one, what we'll do, we'll try to do and run some commands. Run kubectl get pods, so that should give us all the pods that is running. Hit enter. So it looks like there are two pods that are running. One is the internal, another is the external. And in the listing of the pods, copy the first entry in the name column. So first entry in the name column, let's copy that one. So that is the external one. Copy, and again I'm going to save this one. The next thing that we need to do, in the bash session, we're going to write kubectl execute interactive, then pod name, and then bin bash. So that should take me inside this particular pod and give me a bash shell where we can type some commands. So let's come back over here. What we'll do before we do anything, I'm gonna do this and replace this pod name like that over here. Replace the pod name with the proper pod name. Copy this whole thing now, and then go back over here and run the command. Paste. Didn't do anything. So copy again, paste, and hit bin bash, and look at that. So we are now inside this particular pod. I hope you can see that, and we are logged in as root, and I have the commands available to it. Now I can do a ls and I have access to all the files. So come back over here, and in the bash session within the Cloud Shell pane, run the following to verify that the Nginx website is available via the private IP address of the service. So what we will do, we're just gonna run a curl command to the IP address that we have already noted down. So we are gonna run curl http, and then let's go get the cluster IP from there, and I'm gonna provide the cluster IP, hit enter, and there we go. So you are getting the HTML page back from this particular cluster. Okay, so internally we can connect to that particular pod from the internal node. So everything is running properly. So that's all we wanted to do in this lab. So this lab was a little bit more like step by step, little bit type of run book, but kind of think what we have done. A whole bunch of things we have really done. We have started with Azure Container Registry, then we created the Docker file, build one image, then we pushed that image to the Container Registry, then we created the Azure Kubernetes services, and then we attached this particular container that we created back to the Kubernetes services and allowed these services to manage the container registry and its VNet. And then we have deployed couple of apps. One is the internal, another is the external, and then we verified the internal is accessible from the internal IP or private IP, and the external is accessible via the internet. So everything worked just fine the way it should be. So at the end, when you are done, delete this, run this command to delete everything, remove AZ resource group name AZ500 Lab 09 force as job, and you should be good to go. Good luck with the exam. If you like the video, give me a like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.